I'm not so scared in that sense because it's my own drive that I have. I want to make better work.
Hello, print friends, and welcome. I'm your host, Miranda Metcalf. I release weekly episodes with people around the world who share our love of printmaking. If you like what we do, please rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts. If you don't like what we do, you don't need to worry about doing that. It's cool. We also have a Patreon page where supporters can join at tiers that start at just $1 a month, and that helps to keep us bringing you printmaking content every week. You can also get thank yous like exclusive merch, as well as access to our bonus content, Shop Talk with our editor, Timothy Pauschak. These are chats for the printmaker's printmaker. They talk about color theory, materials, chemistry, and lots of nuts and bolts, down-to-earth professional advice. How do you keep your practice dynamic after you graduate? How do you save money on supplies? What are we going to do when they finally stop making phone books? So if this sounds like something you're interested in, you can check out the link in the show notes. If you want to save a little cash and still support the show, you can sign up for a yearly subscription and save 15% off the tier price. Printmaking forever, shun the non-believers. Hello Print Friend is brought to you by Speedball Art Products, who've been offering a diverse range of high-quality products to your creative practice since 1997. Products like their new line of professional relief inks. Beginning with the flagship color Super Graphic Black, developed with artist printer Bill Fick, and formulated with all the working properties artists demand, these light, fast inks roll out consistently, transfer beautifully, and clean up easily with soap and water. So if you want to take your practice to the next level, head on over to Speedball's website, where you can pick up a can of your new favorite color. There's a link in the show notes. My guest this week is Sofia Salazar. We'll talk about growing up in Argentina in an artistic family, and the choice to move from there to the UK. Building up her brand to the point of making a living off her art, and growing her Instagram presence while finding a balance with her mental health, while relying so much on social media to reach her audience. So, without further ado, sit back, relax, and prepare to like and share with Sofia Salazar. Hi, Sofia. How's it going?
Hi, I'm okay. It's too early in the morning, but enjoying it.
I definitely appreciate that, you making some time to chat with me, and especially I know you've got even a train to catch today, so you're fitting it in, and you're busy artist
don't
life.
worry, I didn't wake up early for you. It's just that we're going away for a week finally, so we've been up since 7, I think, which is not usual for me.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm really excited to get a chance to explore more about your background and your practice and how you've developed your style and your business and all of that good stuff. But before I dive in and we get into it, would you please introduce yourself and let people know who you are and where you are and how do you describe what you do?
Sure. So my name is Sofia Salazar. I am Argentinian. I'm a textile designer, and I've been living in the UK for, I think, 8 years now. So it's been a while. But yeah, I started a few years ago with my brand, you could call it. And I've been working in different techniques ever since, always experimenting, always trying to, discover new things.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Definitely. And so you said that you're from Argentina and you grew up there. Where were you? Were you in a big city or more in the countryside? What was that part of your life like?
Well, I was born and raised, for the first 10 years of my life, I lived in a big city, then moved to a much quieter place, with a lake and in the mountains. So I spent my teenage years in a much calmer place, but that was also very beautiful. And then when I finished high school, I went to the capital. So I moved to Buenos Aires to study, and that was the best thing for me. I really enjoy big cities where you there's always something going on, and that you're not the only one awake at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
That feeling. knowing that you're not the only one awake is just something that I really enjoy.
Oh, lovely.
And now I moved to like the UK, but I live in Norwich, so I don't live in a big city anymore. It's a city. It's not a town or anything, but just compared to Buenos Aires, it's like again much quieter.
Yeah, definitely. Do they have a big printmaking festival? Am I remembering this right? The Norwich Print Fair? Maybe I'm wrong.
No, you could be right, but I do think I live in a bubble. Yeah. So I'm very ashamed of this, but I don't think I've been to it.
Yeah.
I know they have an art university and they have like printmaking studios sorry, I don't.
No worries.
I don't know.
You're doing your own thing. Absolutely.
I think, sometimes I feel like that. Like I'm like not alone because I live with my partner, but it's the two of us in like up the hill alone, just working, and
the house on the hill.
Yeah.
What is she doing in there?
Yeah. We joke about this. Like we always think like the neighbors must be wondering what are the neighbors doing, because we're printing at 2 a.m. and like my studio's in the front room. So if you're walking by, you'll see us, and you'll see us working like at crazy hours doing, I don't know what. Our walls are covered in prints that are trying to dry, and I love that.
I love it. I'm sure it's a thrill for the fellow townsfolk. I'm sure.
I don't know.
And then, so when you were growing up, and you had this sort of like city, and then a bit more country, and then of course going to Buenos Aires, which is like one of the great cities of the world. Where does art kind of start to come into your life? Were you an artistic child? Did you come from an artistic family? Yeah. When did it find you?
Yeah, my parents met in art school. Like they both study art in university, and that's how they met. So I think from a very early age, I was like in contact with that. And actually, I was thinking about this yesterday. I remember my mom, because my mom had me when she was very young. She used to take me to the university because she hadn't finished her studies. So I remember the print presses. Like I remember the print studio. And I remember going there, and I was asking her about this yesterday, and she told me she thinks she graduated in 91, and I was born in 89, so I couldn't have been older than 2 or 3 years old, which is, it's crazy if you think, like, because I really do remember, I have memories of that.
Yeah.
And so I've always been in touch with that. I've always drawn, like sketching was a thing in my family, and we would do that. That would be an activity that we would do together. And then I remember having inner walls, like works that my mom had made, like during her studies, and some of them were print. And I remember looking at them, and I remember asking about how they were made. But so that was from a very early age. And then I did nothing about that. I drew a lot. I was a kid that drew a lot, but I never studied anything. I never went to classes or anything. And then just when I had to decide, I really didn't do anything artistic until I decided to, study design when I finished high school. And even then, I didn't ever consider a career in like the arts. I always thought I would be a designer, which is like in my mind, like a different thing. It still is. So I still find it very hard to identify as an artist. It's always easier for me to say that I'm a designer.
Really?
Always will be, I think. Yes.
What's the kind of distinction for you in your mind between designer and artist?
Well, I think something along the process. Like I know I decide on a product that I'm going to make, or I'm planning something, and I'm trying to think about the ways I could produce it. I'm considering techniques at the same time that I'm considering what I'll be working on next. I think I'm not saying there isn't meaning behind my work. I'm just saying that my way of working may be more related with, designing a product or having something in mind that could be, reproduced or that could be sold. I don't know.
Or maybe it has to do with like the way that the finished product sort of interacts with the world, maybe, so you're thinking about it, as you said, in the sense of product, but also, I know you do like textile work on clothes as well. So you're going to think about how is this going to wear on someone? Yeah.
I'm thinking about the user. Well, sometimes I am, but and it may have to do also with the fact that for me, the idea of living of my art, like it was a bit like far-fetched. Like it could be like being a designer sounded like I would have a job.
Right. I think you're not alone in that. Yeah.
Yeah. Being an artist really sounded like I wouldn't ever make money. So it might have to do with that. But I don't regret having studied design instead of going to art school. I know I would know a lot more now, because right now we just dive in blind in whatever project we're doing next. Technique wise, I mean, I don't know what I'm doing until I'm in the process and until I've done it like 50 times. Then I start to figure it out. But it's not like I know what I'm doing beforehand.
Yeah.
When it comes to printing, I mean, I remember like I've always been curious about how things were made, and like every time I saw an image I would try to read in the description the technique that it was used, and I would investigate that technique. So I've always been curious about it, and I know the theory, but I don't really have any like real practice, or I never tried it except for when I started doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
It really does, but as I'm listening to you say it, I feel like I've heard even people who've gone to art school say something really similar. That you don't know what you're doing until you figure out what you have to do, So I think I don't know that art school would have saved you from that. Yeah, it sounds like design is meant for you.
What I mean is I do, like, every time I see a professional printmaker, like, I realize I make mistakes that might be very obvious for them or sacrilegious, but I don't know. I don't think right now I would like to learn how to do it right, because I think there's something there. There's something in the in between of things that I enjoy. There's something in the not perfect that I enjoy. Otherwise, I would, I don't know, digitally print things if I wanted it to look exactly as it looked in my computer.
Right.
So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm justifying myself.
No, I think that for sure that kind of little feeling of kind of looseness, I guess, is a huge part of your look, and I think of your voice. And part of what makes your design so charming and engaging, I think, is that you can feel that sort of handmade quality. You can feel that gestural quality really coming through in it. So I think that's it very much works, I think. Yeah. So if you didn't find printmaking through art school, when did you discover it, outside of being a little, bambino wrapped up in your mom's arms in the print studio? When did you come to it as someone who practices it, and how did it end up being a big part of what you do?
Well, again, I always knew it existed. Like, I knew what a woodcut was. I knew that was a way of reproducing images. And I remember in 2013, we went to New York and I bought like supplies that I hadn't seen back home or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I bought a piece of like this soft, it wasn't soft cut, it was more like a piece of rubber that was meant for carving. And that was like my first approach to it. I think it was meant to make stamps. And I didn't use it because I had so little of it that I didn't want to waste it. So I never ended up actually stick with it. But that was, I think, my first approach. And then a year later, we moved to the UK, and I bought a piece of, I think it was MDF, or a piece of wood, and I bought the tools for carving, but just like the ones that you would find in a hardware store, like the most, like the cheapest, most general thing. And we carved, well, I carved a design and printed it for the first time, you know, with a spoon and with water-based inks. And I loved the design, and I loved the idea of it, and I loved the gesture of it. And I like, still to this day, I love seeing the ink on the paper and just being able to feel it, like to touch it.
Yeah.
And then I didn't do anything with it for, I think, 4 more years. So it was 2018, and I bought a piece of lino, and I made a print. Like, I did the carving, and then I found the printing so hard.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, still to this day, I find lino to be very hard to print. Like, I think you need a lot of pressure. And so, I don't know. It worked, but it wasn't perfect. It wasn't completely satisfying. So I left it aside for a bit.
Yeah.
Because that's something I do. Like, I'll get excited about something and then disappointed with the result, and I'll leave it aside until my brain decides to give it another try.
I like that.
And so,
yeah.
I like that I come back to it eventually. I like that I don't just abandon it forever.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Then I started doing like this, I think it was A5, sized designs, and they were selling. I was selling them for so cheap, and I sold them for so cheap for so long. But of course, they were selling. And I would print with a spoon or a little background that I had. And then I think I started in May, and I think in October I decided to buy like a small intaglio press that I could afford, like very small, like it's A4. But with that A4 press, I did so much printing. Like I took it to the extreme. I think that machine did everything it could do for me.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it. It's a small press. And I did so much with it. And then I started experimenting with oil-based inks, which I found to be like, I love them. I prefer them. I don't know. I love the colors, the richness, the saturation, the sheerness of it. I love everything but waiting for them to dry and cleaning up afterwards. Which
right. I think that's also very printmakery of you, for sure.
But I mean, to be fair with me, because I'm very messy, I do clean up afterwards every time because otherwise you can't do anything. But you should see my house right now. Like I'm doing a reductive print or reduction print. I don't know exactly the name of it, but I don't have a drying rack or anything like to that purpose. So my house right now is filled with prints that are drying. And because I'm printing ink over ink, because it's like the third layer already, it's taking like a week to dry.
Yeah.
So literally last week we had lunch and dinner in my studio because the rest of the house was taking over the print drying.
You have to go to the studio to find the place that doesn't have prints.
Yeah. Because that's the only table available right now. And so, I started with my business. Started with the embroidery. And then slowly the printing took over. I always loved printing, like the idea of it, screen printing also. So the fact that my business changed in that direction is something that gives me a lot of satisfaction, because I really do prefer to be printing than to be doing any textile work, I think.
Yeah. And so I'm also curious, how did you come to develop this really distinctive aesthetic, this distinctive voice that you have? Because I feel like particularly for artists and makers and designers who do want to make a business like you have, to be able to live off their art and, sell and create, finding that really distinctive voice can be hugely helpful in that. People like to understand the voice of the person that they're purchasing from often. And so what was that path like for you to discover that you had a style that you wanted to say multiple things in, multiple different versions of what you wanted to see out in the world?
I don't find that question easy, to answer, because I can't separate what I do from what I am and what I do all the time. I think I am a bit of a art history nerd, or I don't know, or enthusiastic if you want. So I love museums. I've been in touch with museums since a very young age, and I love archaeological books and, just studying classical art or studying pre-Columbine art, or I don't know, whatever images were produced, or not even images, but also objects. And, that thing inspires me a lot, because I see something and I want to be able to make it, or at least try to understand how it was done. So through that, I think I've I have so many images in my head that I have accumulated through the years, through old books, through museums and films and documentaries, that I think I think it makes sense what I make, if you consider that.
Yeah.
I don't find it easy to say or to see how particular my style is. Actually, I'm always wondering, am I not doing the same thing that Matisse and Cocteau and Picasso did 100 years ago? Am I doing something different, or am I just, following something that was done? The Bauhaus was 100 years ago, and and if you ask me, they did everything so perfectly that why would you do something else? So sometimes I wonder, I feel not insecure, but I do feel I don't know. Do I have a voice? I guess I do have a voice, but I don't see it so clearly. Maybe it's easier to see from the outside. But I think the only way of finding your voice is just working.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I definitely think that for me, for someone who, I have a background in art history as well, and I'm really interested in printmaking and talking to artists. And I think that, the answer for me seems very clearly that you are doing something different, if only for the reason that the context is so different. You're creating new work that's in the 21st century. You're creating female nudes as a woman. You're creating stuff that people are interfacing with through Instagram. So much about how it exists in the world and how it's created. It's so while you can see the art historical influences from, Picasso, Matisse, sometimes I feel like I even see, a Grecian vase, popping up here and there. You're giving that look such a new life, I think, is what makes it exciting. Yeah.
I think I do have something to say. It's not an advice, but I think there's something I find useful that maybe other people can find useful is trying maybe the same drawing with as many different techniques as you can get in touch with, or the drawing won't be the same. The style won't be the same if you use charcoal, or if you use a pencil, or if you use a technical pen, or if you use a brush, or if you use a thicker brush, or if you do a monotype. Many times when I can't, or when I don't know what to do, I'll just ink up a plate and just put some paper on it and try to do a monotype. It's a few things. It's a few seconds and you can't think much about it, and the quality of the line and the quality of the drawing is so different from what you could have achieved with a pencil when you can erase, you can, do that line better, you can do that face over and over. So for me, trying that when I'm stuck, trying to draw with a marker and then with a pencil and then with a crayon and then with a whatever, that usually helps me a lot. And I think it can help you to find a style, because it can help you to find one type of line that you consider it suits you better.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'd love for you to speak to the process of building your company as well and kind of your brand. And I'd love if you could start with the name and then also if you can drop some girl boss knowledge on everyone out there who maybe is thinking about trying to take the path as well that you're on.
Well, my company name is Hiedra. I know it's not easy for English speakers to read it and to guess that it's pronounced like that. It means ivy, like, the plant. And I know people think it sounds like Hydra, which I don't mind, because it's actually a mythological creature. So I think it's okay either way. But yeah, I call it Hiedra. And I started it, I think it was, I started it in 2014, but it didn't really work until 2016, because the first few years I was trying to figure out what to do. Because, that thing I have where I like to do many things, that also means that I could be doing anything. Like, I didn't really have an idea of what I could be selling. It could have been clothing. It could have been weaving, with a loom. That's what I was doing at the beginning. And so I tried a lot of different things, including, ceramic, until I found that when I was embroidering on clothing, people wanted that. Like, clothing was something that was very, instant, if you like. Like, you could picture yourself wearing whatever I was making, right away. And when I found that, I just immediately decided, well, I'm going to do this now then. I discovered two things. I was doing a textile residency in Iceland. It was actually the only residency I ever done, but it was very important for me. And I was recording my processes, I was making videos, and I saw that one of the videos gave me 200 followers. I had 800 followers and I got to 1,000 thanks to one video. And so I realized, okay, this is there's something here. Even
you're getting a response. Yeah.
So this is what I'm going to make. I'm going to make videos and I'm going to show people how I embroider on clothing, and I'm going to sell those pieces. So I started very slow, and my parents-in-law, is that how you say it? Yeah, I think so. they had gifted me 200 euros for something I made for them. And with that, I decided okay, I'll buy some sweatshirts and I'll buy the threads and I'll put some of them for sale. And people did react to it. I knew I had a very popular design, which was two boobs on a sweatshirt, which was something that it wasn't my favorite thing to do, but it was something I knew you would do well.
Yep.
So from the start, I was kind of, combining those two elements of what I want to do and what I think people will want. So I'll mix the two of them and I'll hope they eventually choose what I prefer.
Yep.
And so at that time, I had a lot of free time because I didn't have a lot of orders. So I could design. I was actually doing one new design and one new video each day, which right now I just find the idea just impossible.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, I didn't have anything else to do because, I mean, I was trying to sell those things. But in the meantime, while I was waiting for orders to arrive, I had nothing but time. So I created a lot of content and I put a lot of my time into trying to grow an audience. Like what I did is I found people who were doing work that I liked and that I thought, well, my audience would like this, or it was the other way around. I think this audience could also like what I do. So I would, I don't know, I would interact with, those followers from other accounts. And eventually they would come see my work and they would start following me. And that's how I grew my audience. It took a lot of time, but it was a different time for Instagram. So I think I could really go viral with my videos, which I don't find that easy to do anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Things have changed a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. It's crazy now out there. I don't know. I don't understand any of it.
No, I don't. But I do remember that, like, I came from that residency in May and I had 1,000 followers. I traveled with my family like in June and I got to 2,500. I remember that. I remember being in Rome and, like, I reached, I reached number. And by October, I had reached 10,000. And so in that period, it grew very quickly. So I had that. and yeah, I was selling mostly embroidered sweatshirts that I was making. And so how did I did that for a year and a half. And then I started including the printmaking, and I slowly fade away the embroidery because it was something that took so long. I mean, printmaking, it takes a lot of time, but at least you can do a lot of them at the same time.
Yeah, at least once you once you've created your screen or your block, then you get more than just the one shirt out of it in the end. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you've finished the process, hopefully you'll have an edition that you can sell. Because embroidery, I enjoy it. I like it. I like the result, but it's just if you're going to sell it, you either have to charge a lot of money. Or be very well known and respected, and people will want to pay what it's actually worth. Which is, I don't know, it's hard to find. I mean, it's hard to I'm trying to think of myself buying a piece of clothing that would be, I don't know how much it should be to make sense. So yeah, I don't know. I know I spent a lot of time building my social media audience and a lot of engagement and a lot of content, and I would watch YouTube videos of people making content. I remember in that time I would watch Casey Neistat. Well, he's a very famous YouTuber. He does something that has nothing to do with what I do, but I found it very inspiring to see someone that was actually creating content for a living, which in 2016 wasn't that much of a thing.
Totally. Yeah, it's hard to remember that, only 5 years ago, it was really a different world out there. Yeah.
Well, it was. You know what? I remember I was selling on Etsy, and I would go to these Etsy meetings, and someone said, "Yeah, because I have I sell on my Instagram account," and I asked, who buys on Instagram? I did that. And she told me everyone. Yeah. And that day I decided to create an account.
You're all right, here we go. Yeah.
Okay, I'll show my things here. But yeah, it was very different. And I've never been an early adopter of any social media thing because, I don't know. I tend to be a bit more conservative, but you shouldn't be.
Yeah. And so as you were growing your brand and you're finding an audience and, you're someone who's has the design mentality, you're a maker. Do you ever think about, how do you kind of find that balance of staying true to your brand and the audience you've grown, but also keeping things interesting for yourself and challenging yourself? Because I think that's something that anyone who's, spent a lot of time growing a profile has to sort of face. It's something I think about with the podcast, 3 years on and with a fair amount of listeners each week. It's like, okay, I don't ever want to kind of fall into a habit where I'm like, okay, I know how it goes now. I always want to keep it interesting because I know I'll make better work if I'm interested, right? So how do you sort of tackle that as someone who creates work that people purchase?
I think my personality helps a lot in that sense, because I'm both very curious and I'm also, I am hardworking, but I also get bored if I have to do something like that I find repetitive or not challenging or not interesting. So of course I have this things in my brain that tell me, this works, don't touch it. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I can't follow that voice a lot. I have to make new things. I have to, because otherwise I feel like I'm also cheating on people and that people will notice. I don't know if they notice. I don't know how much attention they pay, but I can't do that to myself. I can't post the same image.
Yeah.
More than twice. If I have to try to sell it again, of course I'll take new pictures, but just showing the same artwork twice is feels like cheating for me, which is crazy. If you think they have to create content all the time, and that content just means they have to come up with something new that is actually good. That I found that tricky. The fact that sometimes I'll have, I know I have to post something, so I'll create something just for the video, and I hate when I do that, but it is part of my job to do that.
Yeah.
So then I look back on my feed and I look at something and it's like, oh, why did I post this? But it's just that balance. I find it very tricky. But the other one, the one that it's related to the kind of work that I'm doing, I feel I'm not so scared in that sense, because it's my own drive that I have. I want to make better work. I want to be able to someday, have an exhibition. And I don't know, it's just, I need it to be good for me. I want to like it. And I don't know, I find it, I think I am challenging myself all the time. I think that's how. And sometimes that means I'm taking risks with the business. I think I'm not doing, I know I could be doing things that will be more popular, but I feel better this way. I actually feel very bad when I feel like I'm only doing this because I know it'll sell well. It just makes me it makes me very anxious to realize that. Sometimes I do. Sometimes there will be a month where I need the money, I need to make the money, and I'll just make some prints to go out. It's always something that I want to do. It's always something that I like, but it's not always my best work, I think. I mean, but again, this is my brain telling me that wasn't your best work.
You're right.
Because I wouldn't ever put something for sale that I'm not proud of, because seriously, I have the imposter syndrome very present in my life. So if I notice I'm doing that, I'll get anxious right away, and I'll start, punishing myself and thinking, you're cheating on people, So no, I think my anxiety takes care of me, doing new work that is good.
Yeah, I know that my therapist always says about my anxiety, like that's just your brain trying to protect you. Like you don't, like you can thank it and let it go because it's just your brain trying to protect you.
Yeah, I think in a way it is. I would like to relax more sometimes, but I don't. Yeah, I'm not afraid of being of doing things just for the money because I know I'm not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Well, I think maybe sort of, I guess, speaking of mental health and the stories that our brains tell us, you'll post a bit about mental health here and there on your Instagram, and you'll say sort of how you're feeling and that sort of thing. And I guess I'm curious too, as someone who is in part making their living through Instagram. And so it's really important that you stay engaged. How do you find that balance, I guess? Because I know that Instagram can be a hard place to keep mental health, like a healthy, you know what I mean? Like a healthy mental health while you have to spend a lot of time on it. How do you sort of manage it? Yeah.
I think a portion of my anxiety is related to the fact that I need Instagram algorithm to work with me, or my engagement will affect my mood because you know what? I have my dream job. In many ways, I live the life that I always wanted to. So for me, my anxiety is like, will I be able to keep this? And how much I depend on Instagram to do that. That's the thing that worries me.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how I find it with the balance. I try to come up with solutions when I get too anxious about that. But I try to be honest because I realize how much people put me in a place that isn't necessarily real. Like I get a lot of wonderful messages that I enjoy, that I love, that I appreciate. But people think I have like everything sorted, or that everything comes easy to me. Especially, I mean, I'm not saying like money wise. I'm saying style wise,
right,
or work wise. Yeah. Like they'll think that I'm always inspired, or that I don't know, that I can just sit down and do something that is good. That isn't always the case. I'm not always focused. I'm not always inspired. That I'm very rarely inspired, actually. And I think like it can be very tricky to be watching at someone else's life or someone else's work and to think, that that's all there is. And what I mean is, I'm not saying, oh, pity me. I'm saying it's easy to be hard on yourself if you think like you're watching someone else succeed, because it happens to me all the time. I follow a lot of artists, and I'll always think that they have better opportunities, that they have more exhibitions, that they probably have more orders, that their work is getting better. Like I do that all the time. And then I think about like myself, and that maybe people do that with me. And I just want to tell them like, no, I don't know anybody who has it sorted. Yeah. I don't know anybody who feels like they are riding this wave and they are on top of everything. So yeah, don't get tricked by what you see on Instagram.
I think that's such an important thing to say and for people to hear. I really do, because we put our best selves out. We put our best work out. We don't post about the failures, because that doesn't always get that kind of the engagement, right, that runs everything. And so even if it does, I don't feel comfortable. I'm not saying complaining, but I don't feel comfortable saying that I'm not inspired, or that I'm finding it hard to start to work, or even like getting out of bed, because that happens to me a lot. But I'll wake up at 9, but I'll get out of bed at 11 because I don't want to, but I don't feel comfortable sharing that, because I
feel it'll look like, like I want people to feel bad for me, or I don't know. It feels so weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That so I'm not comfortable doing it, but sometimes I'll do it just to let people know that it happens all the time to everybody.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
That's again, yeah, I think it's really, really good when people can be open and honest about that, for sure. And I think that art of really almost of any kind, like good art, often has this quality of looking effortless because everything is in the right place. And I mean it with like the design of a piece, but I also mean it's that phenomenon about like how I can lie in bed eating a giant fruit platter and watch the Olympics and be like, doesn't look so hard. You know what I mean? Like, because they make it look easy. And I think that art, like good art, can have the same quality to it, where when something is right, like when everything's being done and kind of falling into place as it should, we just associate that with like, oh yeah, how hard could have that been? So I think it is important for people to hear that to get it to that point, it takes a lot of invisible effort. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot around art and how people see it, because there's also like this guilt I have, because I have the job that I love, and I love what I do, and so in a way it feels like, oh, you can't complain. You're doing what you love, which I am, but also to do this, like I work all day, and I really mean all day. Like if I'm up, I'm working, and even if I'm not like physically working, I'm thinking about work, or I'm worrying about work. So there's a lot of enjoyment, and it's a beautiful thing to do, and it's a like beautiful job, but it is a job, and I shouldn't feel guilty that I have this life, because I really do work a lot, like a lot, to have this. But with this, I'm not saying someone who doesn't have this is just not working hard enough. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that some people think that being an artist is just, playing forever all the time, enjoying all the time, everything. And I don't think that's the truth. It's hard to there are too many things to it to just resume it. I don't know, easily, but
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, if I love doing things, creative things. I love making this podcast and getting to talk to interesting, creative people every week. And it's amazing. And I get wonderful messages from people about it. But every once in a while, that feeling of like, oh, right, some people, when they leave work, they're just done for that day, like I kind of forget that that's true. And it's never true when you're in the business of creating something, on your own and sort of on your own 2 feet, where you're expected to engage with people and create content and, all of that kind of thing. So every once in a while, if I'm feeling really worn down, my husband will be like, well, you have been working nonstop for like checks watch, like 3 years, like they'll be like, oh
yeah, my mom tries to tell me that, like, you've been working all day, you can stop, you can rest. But yeah, I don't know, when it depends on you have to you have to keep working. I don't know if I want to spread this message of you have to work all day. You shouldn't. You should rest and everything, but I don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone take care of themselves. Yes.
Yeah, please do take care of your mental health while I work until I pass out. I don't know. It's tricky.
I get it. I definitely get it.
And again, it's that guilt of what am I complaining about? Like, am I complaining that I have to create content? Why do I feel that it's something to be guilty about? I don't know.
I think for me, I can say that feeling, it comes from, I think, this voice that's somewhere in me that's like, what if it's not good this time? What if you don't, like what if you just make something totally shit this time, and like, and so like, no matter how many times I've done something, like no matter how many times I've made a video or interviewed someone or designed something, there's just like that little devil in there who's like, yeah, but what if you're bad at it this time? And that's what gives me the anxiety when I go into that act of creating, or the act of like, of posting something or making something, it's that little devil in there. Yeah.
Especially designing something or doing artwork, that voice will always be there. Like, you're not good enough, or like everybody else make this, or it's just. But I think I'm fighting that voice. And like I'm trying to ignore that voice a little bit. I'm getting better at it, I think. But I do feel I still need to, like, I'm trying to prove someone that, what I do is a real job and it's worth of, respect or something like that. I don't know who that is, but I feel that. I feel like I'm trying to prove the internet that I'm actually working. I don't know why I do that.
Yeah. Totally. Well, in the little bit of time we have left, could you tell people where they can find you online and check in on you and make sure you're working? Where can people see you?
You can check on me. You can control how many hours a day I work. Mostly on Instagram, which is Yedra. Which now I realize is not easy to find just by hearing it, because it also has like 2 underscores before the name of it. But I think if you look for my name, if you look for Sofia Salazar, or if you look for Yedra, on Instagram, you should be able to find me. And on TikTok, I'm trying my best. And I'm like not succeeding at all. So if you want to see me fail, you can do that also.
I feel like that's just a refrain from anyone born in the 80s, myself included, about TikTok. It's like, we're trying, but yeah.
And you can tell. That's the thing that embarrasses me. That you can tell that I'm trying so hard and I'm not getting it. It's just... I know. Yeah, I'm not that young anymore. That's when you realize when like the next generation is in charge now of the social media.
They're up there in charge of the internet. And is your TikTok handle your name? Or?
It's the same.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same one as it's on Instagram. But yeah, do check my Instagram first, because I'm proud of that work now.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the show notes to it so people don't necessarily have to guess about the spelling.
No.
Yeah, but like you said, also just searching your name will bring it up too. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for letting me steal an hour of your morning before you go traveling.
That's fine.
Yeah. Where are you heading to?
Barcelona.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
I'm so excited.
Oh, that's going to be great. Well, have an amazing trip. Definitely see the museums, as I'm sure you will, as you were saying that you're a museum goer. And again, just like thank you for letting us steal an hour on the first day of your holiday. So please enjoy it.
Yeah,
and we'll
you're very welcome. And thank you for getting in touch. I really do enjoy your podcast, and I'll listen to, like, I have so many episodes that I can listen to now.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I really did enjoy it.
Yeah, this is great.
You can find it useful.
Absolutely. Lots of gems, I know. So we will be in touch. Yeah, and safe travels, okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Bye.
Well, that's our show for this week. Join me again next week when my guest will be friend of the pod, Jamal Barber. We'll talk about his return to school for his MFA 15 years after he finished his bachelor's in design, how this experience has changed his art and how he defines what he does, and going through his master's during some of the most turbulent years in recent memory in America. Oh, and of course, his fantastic podcast, Studio Noise. This episode, like all episodes, was written and produced by me, Miranda Metcalf, with editing by Timothy Pauschak and music by Joshua Weber. I'll see you next week.